Hello everyone, this is Hakaym and welcome back to some more World of Warships, and today we are taking a look at the Tier 6 French cruiser, the Galley. Yes, I'm not going to try to pronounce this name. No matter how many times I practice it, I still cannot get it right. But we are taking out the Galley for the last time. This was probably a really good battle, a good demonstration on how you should be playing the French cruisers. But anyway, we are playing on Two Brother, and obviously this is after the Hood came out. And I want to do a video on the Hood. I will see if I can find some time to do it, take a look at her, kind of see how she is. But as you can see on our team, we have 3 Hoods: a Bayern, a Fuso, Pensacola, Belfast, a Galley, 2 Dukas, a Moss, and a Nicholas. On the enemy team, there is a Hood, a Scharnhorst, Nagato, Arizona, Warspite, Pensacola, Fiji, Cleveland, Graspe, Omaha, a Burton, and a Shiratsuyu. And I spawned essentially on the far western side of the map. I do have a friendly Hood, and there is a destroyer that is not essentially doing his job. Don't exactly know why. It's possible that he may have had something occur in real life, that he kind of kept his ship further back. I really don't know. But honestly, it was slightly aggravating, and I mean, there's not much you can do about that. So we're gonna try to push into A. Now, obviously, without that Nicholas spotting for us, we don't know what dangers lie in A, nor can we really push into A safely. As you can see, the Galley, although has a fairly decent concealment compared to some other Tier 6 cruisers, compared to the Cleveland, still, you really don't want to be the one pushing in. You're more of a support cruiser. You're going to be sitting a little bit further back, providing support as much as possible. We do have a Hood with us, as well as the Pensacola. Now, the Pensacola is, if played correctly, can do pretty well, but she does have that very weak armor along her side, or even the bow armor itself is fairly thin. So we do see a Nagato, and this is how you should be playing the Galley, at least for the beginning. You kind of want to stay a little bit further back. Not very often you want to be that aggressive with the Galley. So I do go ahead and open up. Did see the Nagato open up, and there is a enemy Hood firing HE, and we got a fire already on the Nagato. Very, very nice. And is he actually going to let that stay? No, it does not look like that's going to be the case. It looks like he actually went ahead and used his damage control. But we'll get more fires. That won't be an issue. So I do switch over to AP, hoping that we could deal some AP damage against this Cleveland, and we get about almost 3,500 points of damage, which isn't too bad. Now, unfortunately for us, our Hood is under a lot of fire. There are 3 battleships pushing in. I think the Scharnhorst is going to push in as well. We'll see what he does later on. But the Cleveland is being what Cleveland is good for, being a good HE spammer. And as you can see, I am already being selected as a target, but since I am pulling back and away, they do go ahead and kind of turn their attention to a more easier target to hit. And this is kind of how you have to play the French cruiser. You don't want to be an easy target, because just like the Pensacola, you have very weak armor and you can get very easily citadeled. And look at this fire chance. 3rd fire in the game already, and that is on the Hood. Let's see if that's going to stick. It looks like that is the case. If we can get another fire on that Hood, that would be fantastic. And we actually bounce shells from the Nagato there, which is very nice to see, because once again, the Galley has very weak armor. And it looks like we have a mating ritual between the Nagato and the Hood. Don't exactly know how this, or what ship it will be produced from this, but it looks like they quickly swapped seamen. Get it? Anyway, so we're gonna quickly continue pulling back. There's no way that we can actually push in, and we get another fire on the Nagato, which is superb. And hopefully he'll let that burn. And unfortunately for us, our Nicholas has finally decided to show up, but he has just run right face to face with a Fiji, and a British cruiser versus a destroyer, close range. Yeah, it's not going to be a good time for Nicholas, and he gets detonated. Well, at least that's a good way to get detonation flags. I know from experience how much that sucks. Actually just had a detonation a little bit earlier today, which was extremely aggravating. Chasing down a enemy boat and drops bombs on me, and I instantly get detonated. So very aggravating, but at least I got a flesh wound and I got the flags, which is always very beneficial. Now you might be saying I should be running my ships with detonation flags for my destroyers, and yes, I would agree with you, that's entirely true. But it doesn't help if you don't have any flags, and the only way you can get detonation flag is if you are detonated. So yeah. Alright, so the Mikado is burning quite nicely, and we are kind of keeping at the edge of our range. Now we get another fire. I love this. It's just what French cruisers, and this is very aggravating for a battleship. Another fire on that Nagato, so he's burning up quite nicely. A is essentially lost. The enemy team have put a lot of their battleships over into A, and it's definitely pushed us back, but we've only lost one ship over here, and they don't seem to be overly aggressive as far as pushing into B. They're still trying to take out our friendly Pensacola and Hood, and we have attracted the attention of 4 ships, and yeah, it's a good time to run away as quick as possible. And we're getting a lot of fire damage on this Nagato, and another 2 fires. So this Nagato is burning quite heavily. We have 4 fires on this Nagato. Looks like the first one just went out. Now if he gets his damage control up, he will be able to at least save himself, but we'll see if he is capable of doing that. Getting some pretty good damage. Looks like he took a pretty big beating, and we get our very first kill with Arsonist, and we are sitting quite comfortably at 75,000 points of damage. And this is essentially how you should be playing as a galley, or better yet, most of the French cruisers. And of course, certain circumstances always will vary. I almost sound like a spokesman there. But once again, yeah, this is kind of how you should be playing. Sitting a little bit further back, just spamming HE. And I know a lot of people hate spamming HE, but for the French cruisers, this is pretty much what you're really good for. Very similar to how the Japanese line is as far as good HE, or better yet, good fire chance on their ships. So let's see if we can get another fire. Unfortunately, it does not look like that's the case. Now, the reload rate on the galley is slow. It's not as bad as some other ships. She is, I believe, either the worst or the second worst on the reload rate, if memory serves me. I can't quite remember how long it takes the Alba to reload. I think it's like around 14 seconds, something like that. But the reload rate is probably my major issue, and it does take a little bit of time to get accustomed, because the slower reload rate doesn't allow you to really just spam constant HE, such as Cleveland, where you can almost pop HE every 6 to 7 seconds. Now the enemy team is pushing into our cap, and we're getting pretty good damage. Around 2,000 points there, only with 3 shell hits, so that's pretty good. Now I do switch my attention over to the Fiji, and we get another fire on the hood. Downright fantastic. Now the torpedoes are crap. They're kind of a what-if situation. They're not particularly useful. They do have a 9.5 kilometer range, though you only have 2 of them, and yeah, it's not something you really will be using. Just fire those torpedoes, hoping that I would be able to get a hit, but probably not going to be the case. We get another fire on the Fiji, so he's burning quite comfortably. Now his burn tick will be a little bit lower compared to some other battleships, or better yet, compared to battleships. Is based on the amount of health that a ship has will depend on how much fire damage it will take. So right now we still have the Hood and the Pensacola around. They have been doing a fantastic job staying alive. And here we're actually in a good spot. I realize this is a fantastic spot if someone is pushing into B. This island right here, especially for French cruisers, allows you to kind of stealth fire. And it looks like we have attracted the attention once again of 3 ships, now 2, and we get a fire on that Scharnhorst. Gonna see if I can slip behind this island and hopefully, ooh. The armor on the galley is really thin. You will probably always eat a citadel if someone does land a hit on your broadside. And here I've actually learned that, ooh, this is actually a really good spot. Especially, once again, if someone is in that B cap, you can actually lob your shells over this mountain. You have to get in the right position, of course. But if you can do that, you should have no issues with the ship. Now, going back to the specialty of the French cruisers is the speed boost. The speed boost is extremely beneficial, and it kind of changes the feel of the French cruisers. And we've just earned a Witherer. Very nice. Something I don't see all too often. And we get another fire on the Scharnhorst. Once again, this sucks to be a battleship always on fire. There's always captain skills you can get to negate those fires, but overall you're gonna burn more often than not. So still firing away. And going back to the speed boost, it changes the way your ship kind of plays. Prior, your ship kind of feels sluggish, kind of turns a little bit slow. It feels like you're not going that fast, even though you are going about 31 knots. But with the speed boost, you accelerate, obviously a little bit faster, but you also go faster at your top speed. Although when you do make turns, it does slow you up quite a bit. And I do switch targets over to this Warspite, who is pushing in quite heavily, has not taken any damage, or very little amount of damage, and we get a fire. That is our 18th fire right now. And it looks like we are probably going to win this, probably due to cap. And trying to be careful, trying not to get detected, although I don't think this Warspite is going to be paying attention that much. And we're going to go ahead and slip out, and there is our 19th fire of the game. And this Warspite is burning quite nicely, but there's nothing the enemy team can do unless they can sink a ship, which I'm going to doubt they will be able to. We are going to win on cap. But overall, over almost 140,000 points of damage at this moment. Fires are burning quite nicely, and we just reached 140,000, and we are going to win in just a few ticks, which once again is not too bad. But we have won the game. So our team earned a victory, and we earned quite a bit of money. 614,814 silver, 5,768 XP. We earned Arsonist and Witherer. Arsonist is if you do, I believe, 40 to 60% of damage to the enemy ship and it sinks. And Witherer is if you do like 60,000 points of damage to enemy team, something like that. If memory serves me, I might pop it up what Wither is. I don't always get it, so I tend to forget what it all means. But as far as damage, 143,642 points of damage, 199 shell hits, 1 kill, and 19 fires. So pretty good game, a good demonstration on how the galley should be played. So we are on top of the team with base XP of 1,875. So we did 51,262 points of damage against the Nagato, around 35,000 against the Scharnhorst, around 20,000 against the Hood, and around 16,000 against the Fiji. Our HE shells themselves did around 45, almost 46,000 points of damage. Armor piercing only did around 8,500, but look at the fire damage that we caused, 89,576 points of damage, which really is fun to do, annoying as hell, but yeah, it's something you can definitely use for your French cruisers. But after everything was said and done, this was a very profitable game. There was a combat mission that was occurring while I was playing this game, so we got double the amount of received silver, which, yeah, over 500,000 credits right there. So once again, very, very profitable. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into port and take a look at the stats. So moving on to the galley's stat itself, honestly, as far as what I've seen and what I've experienced with the galley, she's not a bad ship. Probably her major issue is the weak armor, the lack of torpedoes, and also sometimes the possibility of your shells breaking on contact, especially against battleships sometimes. So maybe eventually IFHE, if you were wanting to keep the galley, have a captain with IFHE, that would definitely help you. But if you are moving on with the same captain all the way up, definitely want to get not get IFHE, because essentially the French cruisers will get the biggest caliber shells once you reach tier 10, so IFHE won't be that beneficial. But let's actually take a look at the stats. Survivability, you're looking at 27,300, and let's actually kind of compare this to some other tier 6 cruisers, and I do have at least one other one. I do have the Cleveland, and the Cleveland is fairly well known for being an HE spammer. You can see the health difference is quite significant between the galley and the Cleveland. The Cleveland has 35,200 while the galley has 27,300, so almost a 7,900 point difference between the two. And the armor is actually quite significant as well. It can go up to 127 millimeter, while the galley only has 105. So very, very minimal amount of armor for the galley, which means that she can be easily penetrated with armor piercing, and high explosive can still penetrate her quite easily. Good demonstration is you can see kind of where the Citadel does sit on the galley. It sits quite high. Granted, she does have the spatial armor, which you can actually see if we go from the top down. So there is a little bit of space, but that doesn't always provide a lot of benefit for you. Now, the main guns are definitely a little bit better than the Bertin. You have 3 triple 152s. They have a 10-second reload instead of a 12-second. The turn time of the guns is 14.2. And the max HE damage is 2,200 with a max AP damage of 3,300. Now the HE with some additional flags, you can get the fire chance up to about 15%, which is something, as you saw in the replay, very beneficial, because this will allow you to do a lot of damage very, very quickly. So this allows you to do that fire damage and getting arsonist. But something you do have to keep in mind is it's not as bad as the Cleveland, but it does have that arcing shell velocity. So you do need to lead your target as much as possible, and try to predict that, because it does take a little bit of time for your shells to reach to target, and the range on the main battery guns is 15.9. Now you do have 4 dual secondary turrets. They are 90 millimeters. They have a 4-second reload time with a range of 4.7 kilometers and a max HE damage of 1,300 with a 8% fire chance. Not something you're going to see a lot. Generally with the galley, you most times want to sit kind of further back, providing HE spam from a distance, not always wanting to get up close and personal, because your armor cannot really take that damage and your health pool isn't really there as well, so you definitely need to sit a little bit further back. Now moving on to torpedoes, you have 2 dual torpedoes. They are not really that beneficial. They do have a 9-kilometer range, which is nice. They do 14,833, but you only have 2. So overall, the max damage you can get is going to be around 29,966 points of damage if you get full maximum damage. And that is usually negated by torpedo bow or torpedo armor. And so definitely not something you should really rely on. Yes, they can help you win a fight. They can do that extra bit of damage that your guns just can't really do. They have a good torpedo speed of about 60 knots. Still slow, but not as bad as Russian destroyer torpedo speed, which usually around 55 knots. But they're not. They are kind of bad. They're not very useful, honestly. But the AA defense isn't too bad. It's not too bad, especially if you run AA Madness, which I recommend, because if you do not, CVs can definitely snipe you. Damage wise, you do have 16 single 20 millimeters. They do an average damage of 58, and they have a range of 2 kilometers. Then you do have 6 quad bofers. Average damage is 95. Firing range is 3.5 kilometers. And then your secondary turrets operate as additional AA. Not very great. Your bofers are gonna be your best asset, but you don't have a lot of them. But overall, having AA Madness is going to prove very beneficial in the long run. Maneuverability, she is somewhat slow compared to the Burton. She does drop down to 31 knots. Her turning circle radius is decent. It's about 650. The Cleveland is only 10 meters bigger than the Cleveland. Rotor shift time is 6.1 seconds, which it's not too bad. Concealment 11.7, which is very beneficial. Definitely want to get that fire range increase to your guns. This will allow you to a little bit closer if you need to. So overall, not the worse, especially if you compare it to the Cleveland, which is 12.9. Definitely a little bit more stealthier than the Cleveland can do. So moving on to modules, you want to get that additional range, which will definitely prove very beneficial, giving you a range of 15.9 kilometers. Then after that is taken care of, go for the hull upgrade. This will reduce your rudder shift time and also give you a little bit of more health and a little bit more a defense. And as far as what consumables, AA Madness, I would recommend. You can get hydroacoustics, but it is the basic hydroacoustics, and it is almost always better to have the possibility of defense against enemy aircraft. Now upgrades, fairly standard. I did go for steering gear modification 1 because I do find that the French cruisers have a huge issue with their rudder shift, or with the rudder getting knocked out. So probably want to go for that as soon as possible. Now my captain is a 12-point captain. I'm still working on him. Nothing has much changed since last time. I do still have priority target. I do have expert marksman, demolition expert, very beneficial for French cruisers, and concealment expert. Now you could definitely go for basics firing training, maybe even superintendent, adrenaline rush, advanced firing training if you want to buff your AA a little bit more, make you slightly more impervious. Another good choice would be possibly getting survivability expert. It would prove beneficial, especially since you are generally going to be a lower health compared to other cruisers. Not saying it's going to be the worst, but if you're keeping the galley, having that additional health will prove beneficial. Make you, or better yet, allow you to last a little bit longer in a battle. But anyway, this is actually going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button. You guys have a great and fantastic day. Zaijian.